Hello, and welcome to Startup Stories with Scaleway, where we explore cutting-edge startups around the world and how they leverage cloud computing technologies. I am your host, Ethan Pierce. Today's guest is Joel Rabul, VP at Bionatics. They provide 3D modeling and visualization tools for large urban and rural landscapes and the simulation of that evolution over time. Welcome, Joel.
Thank you, Ethan. Nice to be here.
It's very good to have you. I'm excited to hear about what it is that you're building at Bionatics. We talked a little bit before, and I've done some of my research, but to give our audience context, I always like to start with just your brief kind of elevator pitch, short explanation, so that we understand better what you do before we dive into the rest of our questions.
Yeah, thank you. We have a mission which is based on the core values, and that's very important for us. That our mission is based on sustainability, ethics, and contributive innovation. And our mission is very simple to define. We help territories to own their digital territory assets plainly and simply. And our role there is to contribute to that. We are a digital territory asset catalyst, in a sense, and a participative enabler. So how can we make this? Simply bringing a digital view of the territory, a 2D or 3D sort of a digital twin of the territory, a data visualization and operation engine plugged on top of it, and a catalog of useful and simple smart services. And this is directed to all, territory agents, decision makers, citizens, but also the local businesses.
So I'm interested, the thing I find fascinating in these kind of stories and interviews is always the backstory of why people decide they want to build something. So, where did the idea come from? What was the kind of initial, this is something that, this is a problem that needs to be solved, or what was it that brought you and this team to want to solve this particular problem in this particular way at Bionatics?
Yeah, funny enough, the roots of the project are related to seeds. Because Bionatics started selling seeds, of course, digital seeds. We started doing some 3D modeling vegetation. So we started selling seeds to game developers and studios, trees, plants. And then from plants and trees, we started building landscapes, villages, and then cities. So since 10 years now, we are working on smart cities projects. But recently, a year and a half ago, we decided to move on and to address the market, not following the masses with smart cities projects, which are for us a technological race, adding more and more technology, but applying our view as something simple, cost-effective, and relying on the values I mentioned previously. Sustainability, ethics, and contribution. So this is what we did. Is sort of a Bionatics V2 is sort of a rebirth, not really a rebirth because we never died, but in a market approach, it's a rebirth. And these foundations, these values guided the definition of our offering and the way we address the market now.
Well, I do think it's interesting, especially on the sustainability side. We've seen with the UN sustainability goals, and we've seen a ton of startups that are really focused on solving specific ones in that list. And we've seen a big move in the world of venture capital and corporate interest in innovation around sustainability. Sustainability used to be kind of this thing of, that's nice that you're doing that, but you're not going to make any money. So it's kind of just something that we're doing because it's more like philanthropy or something like that. And now we're really seeing it being the core belief behind the solution that a lot of companies are putting into place, and that sustainability is not only very much potentially the most important thing we should be doing right now as we look towards the future of the planet and the environment, but also this is something that in the process can be economically very interesting, that there can be a lot of money to be made in solving sustainability problems. And so,
absolutely, yeah. Sorry to interrupt you.
Please.
Most of the people think that when we are coming with a sustainability and this kind of speech, they think that we are completely disconnected from business. But in fact, it's a mid-long-term view on business, because we rely we rely on a business that where everybody, including the environment, can survive and can benefit from that business. And coming back on the values, when we talk about ethics, for example, we include digital sovereignty, which is now strategic for countries and for territories. Privacy, which is strategic for users, for us, for you, for me. Ethical use of AI, which is becoming also a big topic. Sustainability includes, for us, being carbon conscious. I'm spending part of I'm generating carbon. I'm spending using the planet. How far can I optimize this? We also support the idea of frugality in technology, adding the technology we really need, and not only adding technology to add technology and then make the bill bigger. Supporting ecosystems and fair business rules, it's part of the sustainability for us, because that ecosystem then can last and everybody is happy with it. And closing with a contributive innovation, collaborative and participation is key, because everybody can add a piece and make the global solution more effective and cost effective, mainly. So those values are not only sort of a religion, they are also pragmatic. They are also business guided to preserve the interest of all.
Yeah, and I think when we do have this discussion about the modern urban landscape and how people are living and will continue to evolve in that situation of our urban centers, and seeing how that works from the sustainability perspective, but then also all the technology that we're rolling out, that we are respecting privacy, and that we are having conversations about the ethical issues that relates to a lot of how these technologies that are improving our quality of living, but potentially come with a lot of data or a lot of surveillance or a lot of things that we need to make sure that those are being managed correctly. It's a fascinating conversation. It's fun to hear this idea of these three foundational kind of values for what you're wanting to build. I spent several of the past couple of years, half time in Singapore as well, and really loved from an architectural and a city, urban planning kind of idea, how so much of everything is well thought out and done on purpose. And you look at these buildings that are just absolutely beautiful, covered in, they're practically just a plant. There's so many trees and plants growing out of these buildings. There's some just amazing architecture, and then you look at the way that people flow works, and all the intelligence that goes into creating modern urban landscapes and helping that planning be put into place. I find that to be fascinating, and just this idea of how much you're embedding the sustainability and ethical and privacy concepts into that is super interesting to hear. I'm curious then about the technology behind the things that you do, and how this works. What are the technologies that you're leveraging to provide these services?
So as I explained, we started selling the seeds, and started with vegetation, landscapes, villages, cities, and so on. So we are a 20 years old startup in a sense, because our 3D modeling technology is very robust, but it has a fantastic strength. It means that we are able to produce 3D areas, very large 3D areas, at very low cost and very fast. And that makes us, quite powerful in addressing that small territories solutions, because the 3D part of it, which is CPU consuming, memory consuming, and usually very expensive, now becomes quite cheap. And aggressively, we can address the market with something that brings the 3D as a standard, right? But on top of that 3D territory and sort of a twin territory, we plug on it a data engine. Data is becoming a masterpiece now, something that is just eating space, bandwidth, CPU, and legal time as well. So it's big. Data is becoming very big. So that engine relies on blockchain to make sure that the data is well monitored and that nothing will alter or touch the data inside or the metadata or the contract or the rules around the data. And we add to that some AI in order to increase the quality of the data when it is necessary. And the third block, so I start with the 3D, the data engine, and the third block is a set of smart services. So we bring applications and a set of sort of a framework around this system in order to produce applications, but also small modules that people, I mean citizens, companies, or the territory itself can use in order to bring and to build their own applications in a sort of a no-code, low-code approach. So you have those three blocks well integrated, relying on strong cloud and sovereign cloud assets to be available to the territories. As I said previously, both sides, I mean agents and decision makers, as well the people living in it, citizens and companies.
Well, I think that the sovereign thing, especially when we're talking about data, but these other issues as well, the sovereign discussion, and when we talk specifically a little bit later about your infrastructure on the cloud side, the sovereign cloud idea behind as well. But sovereignty is going to become something, what already is, but is becoming something incredibly much more visibly important as we see cybersecurity issues, as we see economies become much more local with remote work, all these different things. We're seeing the economies change significantly in the tools that are being used for that, and the idea of sovereignty and making sure that that data is where it's supposed to be legally, and that things are being respected correctly in terms of privacy and the rights to that. All of that is incredibly important, and so as companies like yours are rolling out their stacks, that becomes potentially, it's either something that companies don't pay any attention to, or which is terrible, or it's, and eventually will be a problem later, or it's something when companies do try and understand it, it's so incredibly complex that we'll talk about that a little bit with a partnership with like a partner like Scaleway, but data sovereignty is something that today is on high on the list when you start working with sovereigns like countries or cities, municipalities, whatever that might happen to be. I would love to pursue that a little bit further because it's probably part of how you distinguish yourself from your competition. But that's kind of my next idea I'd love to explore is, based on the services and the value that you are providing to your clients, how would you distinguish yourself from other actors kind of in this space? And kind of on that idea, why should companies that are looking at a provider to solve these particular problems, why should they choose you over one of your potential competitors?
We are coming on the smart city business with a solution that is off the shelf. Usually, the smart city projects are professional services projects, lasting years of development, costing millions or hundreds of millions of dollars sometimes. So we try to be exactly the opposite. We try to be not a professional services-based project, but an off-the-shelf project and product. Then you can you can be going cherry picking the feature you want, and it's just working. You like it, you keep it. You don't like it, you stop it. First dimension. About the cost, of course, we are very aggressive. Why? For a very simple reason. Because usually small city projects are focused on big cities, right? Because they cost a lot of money. But if you have a look at the market, in fact, the territories that really need those technologies are usually rural and peri-urban territories, which are smaller, far from the city, in countryside, most of the time, and with less money than big cities. So that's why we are focusing mainly on those territories, because they are the ones who need the more that kind of technology and support, but they don't have the budget and the money to pay for fantastic and huge projects. So why are we on the market? Why some territories would select us? Because we are simple, easy, pragmatic, and cost effective. So we try to make the technology serving people, serving human. The human is at the center, because at the end we want the citizen to be happy living in their countryside, in their city, and we want the decision makers having the full view on their territory to make the right decisions in real time at very short term. So that's the role of our technology. That's why we have that 3D modeling, large areas, very aggressive in terms of time to market and very low cost. That's why we have that set of application and services very easy to manage and to use, and that very protective and secure set of data engine and tools in order to be sure, to ensure, to guarantee that the sovereignty and the privacy is fantastically controlled. And all of that, I started saying that we want territory to own their digital asset. All of that is under territory control, not under our control or a GAFAM, a big company. I'm not saying that we are anti-GAFAM. I'm saying we are a GAFAM alternative in a sense, because the product is not the user or its data. The product is the tools and the ecosystem we build in order for the territory and for the people to manage the data and access the services. So if someone is looking for ethical and sovereign, protective and low-cost, efficient solution, they can come to us. We will be very happy.
Yeah, and that's so you're kind of answering my next question in there, but specifically, if somebody is listening to this, for them to project and think about contacting you for these kind of services, what kind of organization needs to contact you? Maybe somebody's listening to this and going, okay, that's interesting, but maybe not projecting exactly. From your perspective, what are the organizations that you can bring the most value to?
Well, our platform business has two sides. One big side, which we call it communities, and a smaller side, which is a business side. The community side is dedicated to territories. So usually we talk with aggregated cities, territories where we can find 10, 20, 40 small cities all together in a territory, and they try to manage their sustainable strategy and all together. So those guys are clearly our target and the guys we are on daily basis talking with. Some cities are also coming to us and we bring the solution to them as well. But we prefer to have the territorial view because it's larger and the challenges are more complicated, and then our value is just helping a lot. On the business side as well, real estate business and commercial verticals are also sometimes managing the same or similar challenges, and we are also addressing those guys, but with a different strategy. On the community side, we have sort of a public utility dimension, very aggressive in terms of cost, and we are here to serve the territory. On the business side, we have a more business-oriented approach, and we collaborate with the guys and the companies in order to make their business stronger, and we have a part of it. So those two categories of people are directly concerned and addressed by our platform business.
Okay. So then, in the context of startup stories with Scaleway, obviously there's a lot of cloud computing infrastructure behind what it is that you are doing. Then working in a partnership with a startup program like this, what is it that you need as infrastructure on the cloud computing side to be able to do to provide the services that you provide? And then potentially, as we discussed in this partnership about, what attracts you then to Scaleway in terms of working together to build out this infrastructure?
Well, I will not go into some deep technical details because I will not be able to do so. But roughly and mainly what attracted us to Scaleway is based on two ideas. The first one was technical, because we've been working on very complex open source technologies, bringing them together, having high security, blockchain, AI, and so on in the same backend is quite a big piece of technology. And to be honest, Scaleway fixed in a few hours some issues we had outside Scaleway with some alternatives, and they didn't fix that during weeks. So in a few hours' time, we find right people answering our questions, understanding clearly what we had in mind, and making it running on the cloud backend. So that was the first test. But the thing that attracted us first was when we heard about the strategy Scaleway is deploying now about sustainability and the way they are cooling their data center, the way they are protecting and controlling carefully the consumption of the data center. So the way they are measuring and optimizing the impact on the environment was very important and attractive for us. And then we realized that sovereignty and privacy were also core assets, core values for them. So we are completely aligned, on the values, and on the technical side, they fixed issues we had outside. So, the marriage was obvious.
No, that's brilliant, and I agree. I think it's as a friend of Scaleway, I'm always very impressed by the sheer amount of innovation that they have put into creating new solutions to cooling the data centers and other ideas to keep to impact on the sustainability side, to reduce electric consumption, water vapor, all the different things that go into trying to make a data center more efficient, but keep it sustainable and economically viable at the same time. Like, it's a fascinating thing, and it's so interesting to watch the stuff that they've been putting into place. And then this larger discussion about European cloud sovereignty, which is again, as we look at this idea of how much data is being generated and how much surveillance sounds like the wrong, sounds potentially negative automatically, but just if you're in a smart cities environment, if you have IoT devices, if you have all kinds of systems that are running to, in an automated way, provide all kinds of different services and do things, you're just naturally collecting lots of data. You're naturally watching lots of things. And so that surveillance of that data is something that, we really need to be keeping an eye on, that companies are being respectful of that, not necessarily for bad actors, but also just to be protecting it from outside influences and hacking and other uses. And so this idea of European data sovereignty is super important, and it's really interesting to hear that is, again, at the core of what you're providing in your solutions. That sustainability and a respect of that data privacy is so high and so important to you. I guess to kind of round that out and finish up our discussion, I'm curious then, what are your next big steps? What's next for Bionatics? What's coming down the pipeline? What would you see happening over the next 6 months, year, 2 years? What's next for you?
So we are currently finishing the development of this platform. We have a live trial going on in France, in a territory. We start selling the platform and making it public in September for France. And next step is to expand this outside France, of course. So we have some ambition on some territories in Europe, but not only in Europe as well. So the ramp up is quite clear. We have plenty of challenges and work to do, but the planning is quite simple. Finishing the trial during July and August, starting selling that starting in September in France, and expanding to Europe and then the rest of the world in some areas we already we are targeting and identified with a similar platform.
Well, lots of great things ahead, it sounds like, over the next bit. Wishing you all the best as you roll this out then, I guess, in September. Thank you so much for this discussion. I've learned a bunch, and I appreciate you taking the time, Joel. I wish you all the best as you scale up Bionatics. And thank you as well for joining us for this episode of Startup Stories with Scaleway. If you're a startup that uses cloud computing resources, be sure to check out Scaleway's startup program at scaleway.com. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or your preferred podcast platform, and check out all of the previous episodes of the podcast. And again, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.